If nothing else works out.
Facebook.
Yes, imagine. Yeah. But Instagram, ooh.
I don't have either. So well, I guess
It's impossible. You have a Gmail account.
Yeah, exactly. I have
It's
Gmail.
just for me. This is like McDonald's, It's like not McDonald's, but Burger King.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. It's true.
I know. I mean, I'm also trying to.
I'm more thinking like, it's just better to share Facebook.
No, I clicked sharing or like.
But is it easy to send someone a link to?
No, this is the question. Somebody who is not on Facebook, of course not. That's true. Okay.
Well, okay, they probably.
Okay, if nothing else, we're streaming here so that if somebody wants to watch live, okay, on Facebook. But if you can make it work on this would be gold. My phone doesn't work when it's a lot of pressure.
It's working.
Sorry, I will just. It's here. So I'll block all of my gears. What will I do?
Oh, hey! How's it going? Good, and you? Great. I voted yes on your proposal. Although it sounds like it was mostly trolling. Because they already said no. We're not doing it.
That was mostly
Okay, I think I'll
George? Did you work for playoffs?
Oh, Jorge. Sorry, I say the French way. Because that we went to Aragon like really early stage, even before most of the.
Yeah, but I have to start streaming.
Yeah, I'm surprised that they don't want to work.
And then I don't know if you actually want to make it on stuff.
Yeah.
And then you have Luke who says no, don't do that. And because I
don't know if okay, the phone
implementation because of that. So at one point, which is not even your which is controversial. You want to make a fee on your application.
Yeah.
Hey, my phone died, so we will basically have it open on Facebook, but we will also try Twitch again. So if Twitch shuts down, we are here. So both are running, Twitch and Facebook. But Twitch will have a microphone. Yeah.
I think you also.
Yeah, I'm done with this. I didn't really like
You can look at the forum.
Guys, should we slowly continue?
Yeah.
Yes.
Next month because then I will need a bit of.
I mean, they definitely are about controlling all this shit. That's for sure.
Like Luis, everything should be arranged. I think Luis would have basically Luis would have wanted to buy all Keros. No.
Yeah. But you can't buy clearance.
But it's not only that I want to buy all Keros, but to be sure that he has submitted to submissive to it.
Yeah. How many days ago was it?
It's hard to rolling. And this one about spoke about this event soon. That's why I love it.
Oh yeah.
It's like a group.
Okay. Start. But don't wait for. I'll watch it later.
Il vient à tu. C'est plus. Il y a qui veut not at you. Oh no, il est à tu.
Oh yeah. I just don't watch these things very well.
They have like this regular
I think that's what we have in Aragon. Like you see how much money they spend.
Yeah. I'll recommend like people.
Yeah.
When it was us, I was in Aragon as well.
You're not going to?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're not. You're gonna give up.
Yeah, I think so. That would be a bit crazy to we just went to
Yeah, I guess that's fair.
and probably gonna come out on that side.
But that's it's good.
Yeah, it's really cool.
That was nice. Nice pretty. It was, man.
Yeah.
Right now,
What makes you feel like it works better?
there's a lot.
Because I've never had it like that.
They under the proposal creation. So, like for now, we are in Aragon, and I have to build the system.
Yeah.
So yes, I'm looking for the same like
We're still some kind of centralized for who can
maybe I have to go out there.
But you can make it so anyone can propose, right? But
then anyone gets back.
it's fine.
Alright guys.
Yeah, it's like so, hello, my name is Bernd. I work for a company called WizardAmigos in Switzerland. We are a startup working in the investment industry. We are trying to build a solution. Trying to build a blockchain-based solution to actually track provenance of physical workers as they travel around. Before I get into detail, I'm here just on vacation, so I'm even got my laptop. So everything is going to be very improvised. What I'm saying, I'm going to be jumping around a lot because this is more like a sort of investor pitching, marketing type presentation. But there are a few text slides also at the end, so I'm going to jump a bit back and forth, and at some point maybe I'll just see so if there are questions because I'm not sure how to gauge exactly.
You do goal traceability?
Traceability, yeah, exactly. So we want to create basically a sort of, yeah, we call it a certificate or like a CV or whatever you somehow.
Blockchain provenance?
Yeah, maybe this exists for diamond or people are working on this for diamonds in a way. So yeah, actually that's a good starting point. So what's the context actually why one would want that, right? So once in a while there come these things in the news that gold gets actually forged and injected into the financial markets, or that actually gold gets produced out of mines where child labor is used or money laundering is applied. So it's genuine gold, but it comes from dubious sources, and it's very hard for legitimate companies to track actually where the gold comes from. So if you are like a serious business and you're audited and you're trying to comply to some regulations in financial markets, you need to do all sort of checks, like check your customers, right? Do KYC before you do business with somebody, and you need to also actually to some degree prove that the assets that you're handling are clean, so to speak. But that's very hard because you don't necessarily know when you buy a piece of gold from somebody. Where is this gold actually coming from? Right? Can I say we buy this, or does it come out of some dodgy mine or some dodgy country, or has it maybe the guy who owned it before, maybe you get it from there? But there's pressure on companies to actually obtain this type of information. And today it's all kind of paper-based and manual. People make phone calls and try to research themselves, and they call in auditors, and it's not very efficient. So one solution that one could
consider that would solve this very easily is basically we just declare one big policeman type company, right? That has like a centralized system where everybody just does their business. But of course, nobody wants that, right? Those companies are kind of protective of their data. Who are they doing business with? They don't want to be dependent on one single database that could go down or that could get hacked or leaked or anything like that. So they want us to stay in control of the data. So we are using actually a blockchain called Corda. I don't know if anybody heard of it. It's built by a company called R3, and it falls into this DLT, distributed ledger technology, second, third, whatever generation blockchain. Sometimes people label it. It shares many ideas by Bitcoin. So the guy who designed it, actually, Mike Hearn, was sort of Bitcoin core developer, and I think Mike Hearn, yeah. So he's the designer of Corda. He works for R3, and so I think, yeah, he took many of the ideas, like it's UTXO based, and the main difference, I guess, is it runs on the JVM. So the smart contracts, or the node is run built in Kotlin, and it runs on the JVM. The smart contracts that validate whether a transaction is correct or not, you can write them in Java, and they have something called DJVM, a deterministic Java virtual machine, which has a very restricted set of operations. So you cannot write to the file system, right? Because I could write a smart contract that deletes your hard disk or something. So they forbid that too. But otherwise, you can use all the tooling from the Java world, right? So you use whatever IntelliJ Eclipse or what people like to use when they program in the Java ecosystem, I guess. And the other main difference from Corda to other solutions, to Bitcoin, let's say, or Ethereum, is it has a different privacy model. So when I create a transaction where maybe I'm sending you some money, some Bitcoin, that transaction eventually reaches all the nodes on the network, right? So it gets broadcasted basically to everybody. And what they've done is actually they slightly changed it around. So a transaction, I only sent it to those that I want to see it, right? So in a way, it's not like one big ledger, but you could argue that for every state that you create and that you eventually mutate by doing multiple transactions, it's in a way its own ledger. Right, so you could, in a way, you could think of it as many ledgers that are maintained by different subsets of nodes, which represent in our world the organizations actually that interact on the precious metals market. So the way, now I need to find a slide that somehow is a bit meaningful. So who are these parties that we're working with? Just high level. So gold is actually, well, at some point it gets produced, obviously. So there's refineries that produce physical bars, and then they essentially sell them, or sometimes refineries sort of operate already on behalf of some banks. The banks wants to have some gold, so they tell the refinery to produce these many bars, and that's how actually, let's say, a legitimate gold bar would enter the life cycle or enter the financial system. It comes from a producer, and then the producer, however, he doesn't keep it forever, obviously, right? So he will give it to somebody else, and then there's another set of companies which we kind of call them the logistics companies. So what it means is gold can be transported around, and gold can be vaulted, right? So there are companies that have like very secure storage facilities. There are quite a few of them in Switzerland, but actually also in Asia, all over the place.
What happened? Is there like a scan bar on the gold bar that people scan and say, okay?
There are some attempts to do that at the moment, which are quite interesting, but there are many of these, right? So some people, they build QR codes that you stick on it. Some people, they try to have something even more advanced that gets sort of melted into the actual bar. Some people have a solution where they sort of take photos of the gold from different angles, and then they use some image recognition to try and re-recognize it as it travels around. So it's a bit challenging, I think, for the industry to, even if all these solutions at the end are successfully working, right? If you are a storage provider, your business is to store safely a lot of gold somewhere in a building that you own, and you get a shipment, and it has like 5 different of these identifiers. you need to actually work with all these 5 different techniques, right? You need 5 different types of scanner hardware and software to work with them. But yes, there is these attempts. What we actually do is slightly different. So what we say is give us just the properties that make a gold bar unique. And these properties are things like what is its weight, format weight. So a gold bar can be a kilo, can be 100 gram, can be 12 point whatever something kilos. Give us the serial number, right? So the producer, the refinery, they usually put like a unique serial number anyway on top of it. That's kind of always been the case already. There's sort of purity or fineness, right? How much percent is really pure gold, because there's always some little other materials that go inside. And so we collect like a bunch of these properties to say, okay, this is a unique gold bar. And on top of that, if in the future we get new identifiers, then we will happily also store them. But to get going, we just collect those from the refiners as they produce the gold, and we collect it from the vaults as they actually handle, like take ownership or physical custody, you would say, of the gold.
Isn't that very difficult to do with something that you can just melt and say like, okay, now it's somebody else's gold?
When it gets melted, then basically you would consider it destroyed, right? And that happens. So gold eventually, you could melt a gold bar, you could melt, I don't know, a tooth, right, whatever, and then forge a new gold bar out of it, right? That would be what these refiners actually do. So they take some gold, they melt it, they produce a new bar, they put there, but then it has a new number, right? So what we do is actually we build a piece of software and we offer it to all these companies to install, or we can in principle host it for them, but ideally we would like that they host it, because we don't really want the responsibility. We don't want to see their data, right? The whole point is that they can do their business. We don't really see, or we see the minimum that we need to add some value, right? So we have a sort of Oracle-like service in this where we try to tell you whether the gold bar that you have produced or that maybe somebody has just delivered to you on a van, it already exists, right? Because this is a real problem. Duplicates are all over the place, and duplicates can pop up exactly from these forgery or money laundering activities. So if I wanted to get some gold into the, like wanted to clean my money, I can make a gold bar, and I put some good brand name, Valcambi, and I put some serial number, I don't know, that I'm just making up, and then it looks like it's been produced in Switzerland, and it's like trustable asset that somebody could actually buy. But what we can now actually do is we can say, hey, this gold bar, somebody has already told us that they have it or that they have produced it. There's something fishy going on here, right? But this, oh, sorry.
There's a question. Do you still have a question?
Yeah, so for each, let's say you have some unique gold bars in your system already. If someone wants to create a fake version and just swap it out with their fake version, how do you prevent that?
When you say swap it out, I'm not sure. So let's say I have produced a legitimate gold bar, right? I'm a company that produces gold.
I'm like an evil person.
Yes.
You give me a bar.
Yes,
And
I've given.
I have a fake bar and I swap it, and it's identical. It looks identical.
Yes.
But it's still registered in your system.
So the only things that are registered in our system are whatever these companies actually actively register, right? So if you are in the business of, I don't know, laundering money, you are very unlikely to become a member of our system, right? The point is that we can only see what these companies tell us. So what we are trying to get is like a large enough number of companies that are let's say legit, right? That are maybe audited, that are recognized, that have a reputation in the market, and that want to protect their reputation, and they want to make sure that they only handle legit assets. And they would then actually update the information as these gold bars are traveling around.
If I understand you, your question is basically, what if a company says that this gold bar is the real one, but they kind of exchange it with another one, and they just claim that it's. Was that the question?
So if
they trust it or not, basically.
The companies are trusted, yes. So we cannot really go into each company and install some. Well, there are some attempts actually to build hardware that can do some detection on whether the gold is fully, let's say, pure, right? It's not a fake. There's no, I don't know, iron or something inside, which is already somewhat difficult. just due to the physical properties of the gold, apparently. But yeah, that's not really our goal, actually. Our goal is that before you buy a gold bar, right, you should be able to see who has physically handled this gold bar, where has it come from? And all you get to see is essentially the confirmations of the companies that physically handled it, right? So I can see this gold bar has been in the hands of company A, and I trust company A. And before that, it has been in the hands of company B, and I also trust company B. And before that, it has been in the hands maybe of company C. Oh, but company C I don't trust, right? So if you are company C and you are in the business of swapping out bars or introducing fake bars, you can do that, absolutely. But eventually, you will always, put your stamp on something that later will be found out potentially as fake, and then your reputation is essentially gone, right? You would be probably removed from this network or sued, or I don't know what would happen. So it's more like an incentive question. Cool. So yeah, I guess that was sort of the main point. I guess what you get is this list of digital signatures of all the companies and associated with the identity. And the hope, I guess, is that it excludes sort of untrustworthy or illegit players in the market. We also hope that it will reduce a bit this paperwork effort. So this is like we're building like some web front ends and API and automation, so that you can actually, if I ship some gold to you, maybe I'm a logistics company, right? So I have a vault, and however, I store gold on behalf of some 9 minutes. Wow.
Just a guidance.
I guess maybe I will, in the interest of time, get a bit to the technology slides, which, unless there are some more questions, I don't know if the concept is clear.
I mean, in a way, this question was actually very legit, because it's a question like, why do you need blockchain if you anyway have to trust these companies? Then you can just always trust these companies. Why would you need to track anything?
Why would I need to track anything?
I mean, you can kind of make the supply chain transparent.
Correct.
Maybe that's the goal, but the individual party you have to trust.
Yes, correct. You have to trust that an organization, you only get to see, okay, it was in the hands of this organization. You don't know which individual in that organization has maybe touched it, or you also cannot really inspect the atom of the gold, right? There's just some limitations, I guess, in the reality that we cannot really work around. But why do we use still blockchain? So, like I said, or tried to say at the beginning, the maybe more straightforward and simple way of this would be to say, well, we are just building a single sort of big server that we host and we own and we operate, and please, you all get like a small little SYN client or a web login or something like that, and then please, every time you receive or build or make a bar or move a bar around, and tell us. But that would essentially make us like the big global owner of everything. We would see who has gold, who's moving gold to whom, at exactly what time, who's selling potentially gold to whom. And we don't want to be in that situation. So, like I said, they are a bit protective. So blockchain for us is really a utility to synchronize databases of multiple organizations without that the database is owned by the single organization, right? So it's really more efficiency gain rather than I don't know, we're not trying to beat some censorship, and we're also not assuming that we can track everything through sensors or so.
Do you have an actual use case in what your slides, maybe a concrete example for what you're applying this to? So you mentioned the gold industry. I can see this same problem in the diamond industry.
Yeah, that's correct.
Like I've seen the blood diamond, and it's like, I don't see that the gold industry doesn't have this problem with like employing child laborers or whatever to mine gold, because with diamonds, people would do that with diamonds. So like I would say, like I would be more concerned if I was going to like a shop that I was buying my diamonds from. I would be more concerned, like if their diamonds they have are legit distributor or like a mining company that is like socially responsible mining. So like, do you have maybe something that illustrates that in your slide that gives me kind of like a idea of how this technology that you are you guys built this technology, right?
Yes, I could try to actually go through a basic life cycle of a piece of gold, but then
Do you have something like that?
yeah, we have a front end. I actually deployed it earlier, so I could go to a. But I'm not sure how valuable, and also 5 minutes. Yeah. So I have a little test net that consists of, I think, 5 simulated companies, but it's actually 5 different machines, and they are connected through this Corda blockchain. And what I can actually do is, I could upload a CSV file, which is a sort of not very automated way of getting data into the system, but we need to start somewhere. So we're assuming that they have existing ERP systems. When they produce a batch of products, maybe they can upload it or use our API to push it into our server, and then it will actually. And then what would actually happen at that point is some transactions would be created that get distributed. Well, it depends. If it's really just the refiner who registers is for the first time, there will be a transaction shared with us. So we also are a participant on this network. So this governance is essentially our company running also a node, and we get copies of some transactions. Like when there's a new piece of gold produced for the first time, we get the information that the gold has been produced, and we know the organization that produced it. We don't know exactly where it's located. We also don't know who owns it, right? Like I say, it might be produced for some bank that actually paid for it. We don't know that it belongs to that bank. So another transaction would, at that point, when I do this registration here, another transaction would be sent only to the owner organization, like the bank. So what I did here is I created one asset, and we give it some number, and we track the date. And what I could also do is I could create a second asset, and then what we would actually detect is, for example, if it's a duplicate, we can tell the 2 parties that, oh, there's the bar that you have with this number and these properties, it has appeared somewhere else on this network. So this is kind of a suspicious case, right? And now we can tell the 2 parties, guys, there seems to be a problem here, right? One of you likely has a forgery or something, maybe from suspicious sources in your hands. Please sort it out. And both products, we actually mark them as, or we flag them. And these are all transactions that are created and shared only between those parties. So nobody but those 2 parties and us, to some degree, we are aware of this conflict, of this duplicate. So I can actually do that. So what is my other? Let's go here. Make mint. Oh shit. So what I'm actually doing, I'm pretending to be the employee of some other company. I'm logging into my local system, right? So the other guy currently, he has nothing, right? This should be empty. Everything is empty except that there's one bar of gold currently in the hands of this company called the Money Bin. The Money Bin is, let's say, company A, and here I'm talking with McMint. So McMint currently has no assets. But what could happen is that McMint receives a shipment, right? Maybe he bought some gold from somebody, and we don't really know who he bought it from, or where it originally came from, or where it was mined or produced. But now he is a participant in our network, so he will also register this piece of gold. So now we can actually, and now I need to actually make sure I get everything correct. I think I made this a 1,000 gram, whatever, 999. He would also do a CSV upload, of course, but I haven't got any CSVs prepared for this because I don't have a laptop here. So it's a lucky bar number 1. Wow, what a great number actually. Okay, never mind. So on the top, this is what I was saying at the beginning. These are what we consider uniqueness properties or identifiers. And if I didn't get this all wrong, then what should now happen? And it actually takes a moment. So this guy created a transaction. He created actually 2 transactions, and one of them went to us. So we are currently the only one who know that there are 2 gold bars with the same basic properties. So now we create a transaction back, one that we share with, actually we create one transaction that we share with the 2 involved parties of the conflict. So if I switch back, and I just refresh this because it always usually, so this has now gone into this kind of yellowish state, right? Okay, but anyway, this is the only time he sees something, but at this point, he previously had a good bar in his hands, and now actually if he just refreshes, he also sees that there's a duplicate. And now he could actually go and say, there's a problem here with one of my gold bars. What's exactly the problem? And we tell him at this point, we tell him who's the other guy that actually has the gold bar. And of course, this would be straightforward to implement by just building one centralized database, but the actual implementation is such that everybody keeps sovereignty over the data, right? So this is really you can install this in your local infrastructure or in your preferred cloud provider or wherever you would like to run it. And I'm already at 0 seconds, so maybe I should allow questions.
Add some more stuff, or otherwise later we
do
this. But you mentioned also that you're looking for developers. If you want to mention this, if somebody's...
Yeah, that's correct. So actually, we've built this up until here, and we are in a sort of pilot phase where we have a few concept partners, like a couple of refineries and a couple of logistics companies that are interested to actually install this and trial this for a few months. But our problem at the moment is that basically the front end will need some extensions. We already got some feedback on a conference that we attended a week ago, and then we need to rebuild quite a bit of this. So I'm the CTO of this company, Axidras, and we are currently actually looking to get some people for backend. So our stack, actually, maybe I can very quickly, and then I'll finish. Our stack is. This is actually a bit slow. Yeah, never mind. This is fine. Can I make this bigger? Oh shit. Okay, I can't really make this bigger. So we have React, ECMAScript, etc. Front end. We are mostly writing the backend in Kotlin using Spring Boot. We have a Keycloak server for authentication, and at the bottom is this Corda blockchain, which is also running on the JVM. So yeah, anybody who's interested to do some either, it doesn't have to be React. Anybody who really likes to build front ends and Kotlin backends. Are we decentralized?
Is it a remote job?
It's a possibility. Yeah. So we are based in Switzerland. We have an office there, but yeah, we have people working from home, and I'm actually exploring this idea. So I was coming here on holidays, and I just got in touch with this group, and thanks for inviting me to speak here. I'm actually interested in this lifestyle of digital nomads, and I wanna connect with people, and it's just a nice opportunity for me to actually show that here. But if I can make this being developed in this remote way, I think that would be potentially quite cool. So I'm definitely open to that idea.
Yay, thanks. Discussions will continue later, but because we kind of and we have this book just for 3 hours, so we have to kind of But thanks. I mean, I hope some of our friends from Taiwan are watching who are actually developers looking for some remote opportunities. So maybe later you can connect with them. Thanks. Grief, do you want to go next? I would love to hear what you're cooking. I haven't seen your talk at DevCon.
Oh, good.
So this is really cool now.
Nope. I stick with the old Macs, man. Okay. Good, thanks. I mean, can I clip it, or is that? I like the clip. I want to be heard. We'll do it the classy way, huh? Like through the shirt. Oh yeah, that's right. Miking myself up here.
This is hard to do alone. Oh, it worked.
Cool. So, hi guys. I am working on this really cool project called the Common Stack. I feel like it's trying to take the magic of blockchain technology, incentive alignment, and bring it into the real world to support public goods. Specifically, we're focusing on open source to start, but in the end, the real goal is to realign incentives in the nonprofit space. I've been in the Ethereum space for a long time. I was part of the DAO and Slockit, and I've spent most of my time working on what I'd call the Ethereum Commons, right? Like infrastructure projects that don't really have a good way of creating a business model because you're just building infrastructure that doesn't have a direct customer. Just everyone gets to use it for free, and it's difficult to exclude people. So, and the Common Stack is now what I'm putting all those other things on pause and really focusing on the Common Stack because I think it solves the same problem I'm running into in all of these projects. It's that there's no funding, right? There's no way to actually be rewarded. All the contributors that work with me, like, I don't need the funding. I got lucky with crypto early enough, right? But all the people I want to work with, I feel like I'm practically exploiting them because there's no way to pay them anything. And I think that we can actually use blockchain alignment tools to create continuous funding for open source projects. And our mission is to build the foundation of tooling and documentation to make this easy for everyone to use. So back to the main point, it's that like open source projects have the same problems that nonprofit projects do. They rely on donors, and when you rely on donors, those people are basically getting screwed, right? Like they're not getting screwed in their own way, like they appreciate the value, but in the end, they're sacrificing. And so everyone who touches that money afterwards, they also kind of have to sacrifice as well. People in nonprofits or people working on open source are constantly underpaid. And if they want to create a sustainable structure, they usually have to sacrifice their values, close source some part of the UI to make it work, right? And this is stupid. I'm sorry, like this is just a complete failure in our economic systems. People appreciate the value that there is a collective value that's just not being quantified in our economic world, right? Both for-profits and nonprofits produce value. It's just for-profits can charge individuals and nonprofits can't. So you have these free rider issues. And this turns, when you mesh the collective values plus the for-profit world, we get really fucked up situations, right? Like where if you have a factory on a river and maybe it costs $5 grand a month to get rid of your pollution ethically, you actually have a fiduciary duty to pollute the river. If you got rid of your pollution ethically, your shareholders could sue you, okay? That's, at least in the States, this is how this shit rolls. It's horrible, you know? This is the same case where there's no economic system for a community well, but if you want to create a bottling factory, no problem. You can just, you know, you just create a bunch of plastic waste and that's okay, right? But because you can actually create an economically sustainable system. But blockchains have actually found a way to solve this. And what they do is instead of trying to create a business model around a public good, they just create an economy. They create an economy where money is created for contributing to that public good. So now you don't have to find a business model, right? Bitcoin, anyone who's mining Bitcoin is being rewarded with inflation. A good example, oh wow, I wish this thing wasn't there. A really cool example is CureCoin. Has anyone here heard of CureCoin? No? So you have, because you're OG. But CureCoin is really cool because they actually took something that was altruistic, which is folding at home. Have you guys ever heard of SETI at home? Search for extraterrestrial intelligence, right? Yeah, so this is a program you can run on your computer and see if aliens are talking to us, right? And everyone's doing it altruistically. There was also folding at home, where you're folding proteins for cancer research, right, and Alzheimer's research. And people have been doing this altruistically since 2002. But then in 2014, CureCoin came around, and they said, hey, let's make this the proof of work, right? So they actually just tap into the folding at home network. But when someone folds proteins using CureCoin, they're also receiving the inflation of CureCoin. So now they took something that was altruistic, and they created an economic incentive to do so, to do the altruistic act. And ever since CureCoin has launched, it's been #1 on the folding at home participants list. With the Common Stack, we believe that we can take the tooling that blockchain provides and actually bring it into the physical world, because all of these are basically computing power commons. It's like, okay, now we have this shared computing power resource, and that's great, but that's not going to help us clean a river, you know? And what we do to make this bridge is, it's not that crazy. We just use DAOs and a proposal system. But there are some other issues, right? Like I'm not a big fan. Well, let's see where I'm going with this. Okay, so we are building infrastructure, right? Like I consider blockchain systems infrastructure, public infrastructure that everyone is using. And if you're building a bridge, you don't just like write a white paper and then start building that bridge, okay? Like you actually put it into some computer software, you run some simulations, you figure out what sizes you need, you do a lot of design work, because people are going to be using that bridge, and you can't just change it later. This is the same with blockchains, okay? We got to get out of this like computer science mindset. In the computer science space, it's fine. You can just make a pull request later, change the whole website. It doesn't matter, right? You can't do that with blockchains. Once you have a blockchain out there, it's really difficult to change. I mean, I think the Ethereum community right now would be happy to add block rewards that go to devs, right? Not going to happen. It's too late. There's too much momentum. So when we're building these complex systems, we need to start taking the same mindset that public infrastructure takes, which is run simulations. And a lot of people are doing this. MakerDAO, like all these groups that have a lot of money, they put in the effort to do these simulation tools, but they're all rolling their own. So we're really excited about CAD, which is a crypto economic simulating tool that has just been open sourced. We helped them open source it. And what's really cool here is if you start making your designs in CAD, then people can take the designs, manipulate them to change them the way they want, and then write the code after that, right? So instead of taking code of a complex system, changing some things and hoping it works out, you can change things in the designs and test if they work out, simulate if they work out. We have a 4-part system that we want to bring. Let's see, is this? Yeah, so we're going to use CAD to simulate all of these pieces. I'm surprised the slides are a little out of order in my opinion, but there's kind of 4 pieces that we're going to use to make our first what we call commons. We're going to use a bonding curve, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And this is kind of the incentive layer. Then we have the Giveth DApp, which is the proof of work layer, you could call it, right? Like it's where the accountability is had. Because you incentivize behavior, And in computing power, that's easy to prove that it actually happened. But if you're trying to use a DAO and to help a river or something like that, you're going to need some accountability measures. And then, of course, there's a governance layer. How do you make decisions? And then there's a monitoring layer. We have to monitor that the system is actually working appropriately. The goal of the common stack is not to build all of these pieces all by ourselves and say like, hey, look, use our shit. No, we want to build some of the pieces. We have a few of our favorites, but we also want we want to collect all the other tools that people can use to build these systems together. We want to get them all simulated in CAD so people can actually start designing these systems in a robust way using actual token engineering principles, and piece it together there, simulate it, see if it works before they get to the point of actually getting users. So we really love what Moloch and Metacartel have done. They've found great ways to bring community together, but it's still in the end charity, right? You still have, I'm a contributor of both of these groups, and if I donated to Moloch and I donated to Metacartel, I know I'm going to lose money, and that's one thing or another. But what they've really succeeded at is building a solid culture for DAOs, and we really need to look at how they did this. I think that there's too much of this trying to recreate the wheel in blockchain space on the cultural side. On the technical side, we have to. We're building new things. On the cultural side, we can look at what other groups have done. There's lots of research that can be made. Michel Bowens actually is here in Chiang Mai often. He's given lots of talks here, so if you see him, he's one of many amazing researchers that have really mapped out how to do flat hierarchical structures. And yeah, lots of good resources here. And of course, learning from mistakes and failures within our space is really important. Okay. I want to keep going because I think I'm going a little slow. One of the things that the Common Stack wants to do is kind of aggregate all of these resources together and put it in a wiki so anyone can also add to it. Because I'm really surprised there isn't more how to DAO instruction manuals, a cultural playbook. They have lots of technical documentation on how to create this software, but if you don't have a bunch of people that know what they're doing on building communities, it's not going to really work. And so there's a bunch of pieces that I think are important that we have to recognize. And one of them is going to be surprising. I'm surprised it doesn't get talked about more, is what I call a trusted seed. So every successful decentralized network actually has a trustless seed. And it may seem counterintuitive, but all of these networks start off from a core group of people that care more about the value that the network can produce than making short-term profits. Satoshi is probably the best example. If all he cared about was making profit, he probably would have tanked Bitcoin in 2011 once it had any value and ran away with $1 million, right? But he didn't. He was the benevolent, trusted whale that everyone still thinks will probably never sell his Bitcoin, right? And that it is that belief and that trust in Satoshi that allowed Bitcoin to actually get over the hump. And Ethereum also has a bunch of people that, everyone trusts that Vitalik's, all these people have enough money. If they're still working here, they're still pushing forward. But then you can look at it from the other side, and then it's really obvious, is that all the people who just start an ICO just to make money, obviously these are not going to produce successful decentralized networks. These are shitcoins. And so we don't need that shit, right? It's not going to work because they don't have a trusted seed. And of course, the trusted seed doesn't have to stay there forever, right? Once you've gotten through that nurturing stage, right? Just like a child needs to be raised by parents and needs to be incubated inside. You can't just start a decentralized network, throw it to the wild, and say it's going to work out. You have to have people who care about it that will nurture it, but then eventually everybody grows up. if Satoshi crashed, like sold all his coins, Bitcoin would survive at this point. If Vitalik went rogue, you know, Ethereum would keep going. Like, we're past the trusted seed part, but we do need to make sure that we recognize this as something that is real, and we design it into how we launch these things. Okay, so that's the cultural side. There's lots of things to talk about on the cultural side, but the more interesting stuff is the technical side, right? I'm just going to focus on the incentive layer. We need solutions for all of this. Is just how I like to think about breaking these systems up, but we need solutions for every layer. But I'm going to talk about the incentive layer. So in decentralized networks, there's generally the two main way that we align incentives is through initial allocation. This is like a pre-mine or founder reward kind of thing, or inflation, right? And initial allocation gets a bad rep because they're doing it wrong, okay? You gotta add vesting. It's not that crazy. You know, this is just like the reinventing the wheel stuff. We gotta learn from, you know, other venture capital type situations where they always look at the vesting requirements. Because you can do initial allocation in a really good way that aligns incentives properly if you have a good vesting situation. Inflation is really nice because you have this continuous, scalable funding stream that if, you know, the network loses use, like look at Namecoin, for instance. Namecoin, no one uses it. You know, who registered a .bit domain? I've actually registered a .bit domain. I let it go expire like many, many years ago. And, but Namecoin's still there. It's a public good with a scalable incentive layer, because it's still, you can still register a .bit domain. If it was a nonprofit, if it was a startup, it would have failed a long time ago. But it's not. It's an economy. It's an economy with a scalable incentive layer. The two other more novel approaches for creating incentives in these networks are Harberger tax and token bonding curves. Has anyone heard of Harberger tax? Yeah? Ah, cool. Okay. So I don't have a lot of slides. I don't only have this slide on it. There's a few people that have used it. I'm just going to explain what it is and move on. It's basic. This artwork is always on sale as one like the first implementation in Ethereum, where Simon de Rouvier created a non-fungible token that whoever controls, who's ever the owner, in quotation marks, of that NFT, they can change the price of the NFT, but it's always on sale. So anyone can come and then buy it from them. But whatever they set the price of that NFT to be, they're constantly paying 5% to Simon. So if they set the price to really high, they'll be paying a lot of money to own this thing. If they set the price really low, someone else might buy it from them. And so it's a price discovery mechanism that can be used to create continuous funding for a public good. It's very cool. Wildcards is another really cool group. They made trading cards for endangered species. So, and the idea is that the more endangered the species is, the fewer cards there are. So if you want to be like the #1 supporter of gorillas, then you're gonna, they're pretty endangered, so there's not very many cards to choose from. But whatever price you set, you're constantly donating to a gorilla charity. It's a really cool project. Token bonding curves have a lot more people using it. They've been around for longer. Bancor created a library that a lot of people are using, like Aragon Black, and a few other people have rolled their own bonding curves. So there's multiple implementations to play with. We are doing something specific called an augmented bonding curve. And well, let me explain bonding curves just a little bit. So when you have how many people have heard of a token bonding curve? Okay. So when you have a bonding curve, you can think it's just a smart contract that holds funds, right? But it also mints and burns tokens. And it determines the price of let me back up. Okay, so if you have a normal stock, right? Let's say I have a company, I'm going to issue some stock, I'm going to issue 1,000 stocks. Now I have to go find someone to buy that stock from me, right? Someone has to want ownership in this thing. I have no liquidity in my stock. And I have a set number of shares. So if I want to sell 500, I'm probably not going to find any buyers, but maybe I can sell 1 or 2. And what is the price of my stock, right? If I get I have 1,000 shares, I get one good friend to buy one stock for $1,000. Now I have almost $1 million in my pocket, right? Because this is called the mark-to-market price. And it's kind of a giant scam, in my opinion. In fact, the whole financial industry is a scam, but we don't have to go there. But it's all built off of this, like, what was the last price of the transaction? Thank you. And so now I have this 999 stocks that are worth $999,000, when that's totally not true. It doesn't make any sense. And this is because there's no liquidity and there's no way to actually discover what is the price of those shares.
Is it kind of like the stock price on Bitcoin, for example?
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's because Bitcoin, stocks, they all use the same market. They all use the same like price discovery mechanism, a two-sided market. A token bonding curve is a one-sided market. So if I instead of creating 1,000 shares, I will create a token bonding curve. And my token bonding curve will say that based off of how much collateral is in the pool, the price of the token is X or Y, right? So if I have $1 in the collateral pool, then the price of the token is a penny. But if people start buying those tokens, right, and now I have $20 in the collateral pool, now the price might be 20 cents, right? And so it's the same mechanism where as there's demand, the price goes up, and as there's like a lack of demand or too much supply, the price goes down. But instead of trying to find someone to buy the token from, you are actually creating or destroying the token using the bonding curve. So when you sell the token is destroyed. It doesn't need to find another buyer. And when you want tokens in this bonding curve, you buy it, and they're created for you. So now you have infinite liquidity. Every token that exists out there. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I don't really get the concept. Maybe you can elaborate a bit. You were starting from this example with 1,000 shares that you have, and you just sell one, and you have this artificial valuation now that's based off this one single sale, and I get that point. But how does this change the mechanism of that, right? So
it doesn't.
If I understand it right, somebody would now have to put collateral for your entire $1 million whatever company for you to even sell one of them, or maybe that's where I'm not sure.
No, that's the cool thing is that actually I don't have to find someone to sell them to. I can actually, the price is determined by the smart contract, so I can just sell it to the smart contract and the token will be destroyed. So the token supply changes.
Sorry, it's like the token maybe out of this, and what is economically your incentive is here to raise capital, right? So you're issuing shares.
Well, okay. So I'm talking about the token bonding curve as a piece of technology without the like extra baggage of a purpose or like how you're using it, right? Because that's what we do is we create an augmented token bonding curve so that you can raise capital. So the token bonding curve on itself, you could have like the bonding curve could just be yeah.
So you get the curve right here. The curve is predetermined. You see that point? That's where we're at. Assume that, for example, there's a huge supply and you have like a lot of things, but you can see that the curve already tells you that as the supply increases, the price actually goes down. You can already check the supply. You know how much buying 100 more is going to raise the price to, and you know how much selling 100 more will lower the price to. It's not an automated discovery. It's a preset already by the curve.
But what is the purpose? What real world problem
Fair
is this?
valuation, so that you know in advance, like how much.
Yeah, so this as just a piece, nothing, right? It's just a technical like mental masturbation. It has no value, right? But you can add things to it as a piece of software. It's just a way to create and destroy tokens. Okay. Now you can add value to those tokens outside of the token creation mechanism, right? So you could say, let's say that you have a company, right? And you want to create a stock, and all the revenues of your company go to the token holders, right? So now you just say, hey, every month I send money to whoever holds these tokens. Now that is a very basic thing.
But then how is it different from, you assume that people are gonna buy the 1,000 shares that you actually just printed, right? And then you will see some people will buy it and at what price, and then you have also done the price discovery. Here, the shares are just digital shares, right? They are tokens, and I can use some cool blockchain and crypto tech to actually make a cool implementation, like you say, and that is cool. But the concept behind it, I don't see the difference of doing it the almost paper-based way that you initially described.
Well, so now the person who has one token or one share of those 1,000 shares, they have no one to sell it to. That share actually has no value. Even though it says that it has $1,000 in value, it has no value because they have no one to sell it to. Now here, there's no liquidity.
Why? I can go around, I buy your one share,
Yeah.
and I go to you and I say, hey, nobody wants the share.
But what if he doesn't want to buy it?
Assume nobody wants it.
Okay, but how do you guarantee that anybody wants these tokens?
Because it's destroyed. The token, instead of finding a buyer, the contract has collateral in it that are backing the token, which isn't true in shares, right?
Well, if I buy it from you, then I give you the money, and
Yeah.
then you have it.
And then I say I don't want to buy it back.
Correct.
Okay.
But you have the money, right? So
Yeah.
the money is there somewhere. So if I buy the token, the same thing happens, I suppose, right?
Yeah. Then your money goes into the smart contract,
Yes.
and then the smart contract, it has to sell it to you because it's a smart contract. Well, it's a dumb contract, right? And so you will get the money back if you want to sell it. So now, because you now have infinite liquidity. Okay, but maybe it'll be better to actually explain how we use token bonding curves to actually incentivize public goods, right? So we start with the trusted seed, and we find a bunch of people who are, let's say blockchain education. Let's create a commons around blockchain education. So you find Nina and Alex and a whole bunch of other, like Austin Griffith, we'll get all these guys together, all these Ethereum maximalists, we'll say Ethereum education, right? And we'll get all these guys together and say, okay guys, find some funding, get some money together, and let's initialize a bonding curve. Because if there's one thing to know about bonding curves, you want to be the first person to buy in. Because when there's no money in the collateral pool, it's very cheap to get tokens. But once there's more money in the collateral pool, the price increase. Bonding curves are also used for Ponzi schemes. So depending on how you shape the curve, if you shape it in a non-Ponzi way, then the price will increase at a decreasing rate, right? So the more money that comes in, the higher the price, but at a decreasing rate. So you always want to be, the price is increasing the fastest at this beginning area. So now you want to be the first people in. There's a lot of profit that can be made, yeah.
Are these tokens tradable?
In our implementation, we are not going to make them tradable because of legal shit, unfortunately. But they could be tradable, and I could talk about that in a second. Now, if you get all these people to initialize the bonding curve, they're bulk buying into the bonding curve. So now the price that they get might be like right here. It's the average price of the curve. But the first token they bought was almost free. The last token they bought, let's say, is 30 cents. So now they've actually paid 10 cents per token. So on paper, they get that market cap illusion. They get this like, oh, we paid $1 million. You guys did a good job raising money, right? You paid $1 million, but now paid 10 cents per token. But now the token is actually worth 30 cents. So now on paper you have $3 million. And this is the same thing in all stocks. I call it the market cap illusion. I don't know why there's not like an actual name for this thing, but Jeff Bezos doesn't actually have $130 billion. If you try to sell all his Amazon stock, it wouldn't be worth that much, right? This is the same case, but what's really interesting here is it's very transparent. You can actually see how much collateral there is in there. And if you have your tokens and you want to sell them, you can see exactly how much money you'd get, what the slippage would be, as long as you don't have front-running attacks and things like that. So now this is a huge money-making opportunity, right? Or at least it looks like it on paper. So what we do is we take that as an opportunity to incentivize the public good. Instead of $1 million going into the collateral pool, we have what we call a hatch tribute, where 30% goes into a pool that is solely used for funding Ethereum education. So now the collateral is actually only backed by $700,000. And if all of these people just decide to sell their token, they will all lose money. Now, they're not really losing money because they're donating to a charity. Basically, the thing that makes this work is the fact that value is being created for a public good, and people actually donate to public goods at 100% loss all of the time. So participating here and having an opportunity to create an economy that appreciates the value that's being produced, actually you're taking the donation as an income stream, and potentially future donors will come in and buy these tokens and want to use those tokens to allocate this funding pool. Oh, I guess this is the last slide. So we have this initialization of funding for the public good, and then we also implement what we call as an exit tribute. It's basically anytime someone sells the token, let's just say 10% of the price of that token will go to the funding pool, and 90% of the price of the token will go to you. So if someone buys this token at 30 cents and then turns back and sells it, they get 27 cents, and 3 cents goes to the funding pool. And in this way, if this trusted seed can actually start doing good things with this funding pool, right? And people are like, oh wow, Ethereum is being like brought up. There's all these meetups going on all over the world. I want to be part of this. I want to donate to improve Ethereum education as well. Well, they could of course just donate straight to the funding pool and let the people who have tokens decide how to use it, and that would be a complete loss. Or they can buy tokens in the bonding curve, and then they can use their governance mechanism, which is conviction voting, a whole nother topic. But they can use their tokens to allocate funding to the projects that they want to see. Maybe they're in Chiang Mai and they want to see a 5th meetup come up, right? Not enough meetups in Chiang Mai. That's a bad example, there are. How about in Bangkok? There's like very few meetups in Bangkok. They want to start a meetup in Bangkok, so they would buy a bunch of tokens, they would allocate funding to a proposal that would say, hey, start a meetup in Bangkok, and then they would move on, right? And now they get an asset, like an actual token of value that they could turn around and sell later for potentially a profit, probably a loss. But either way, that's way better than the current system of donations where you're losing right away. And you also don't get to create a DAO like Meta Cartel and Moloch, where you get to collaborate with other people that have the same intentions in a decentralized way. So yeah, that's kind of the incentive layer for the Common Stack system. We have a really awesome team. It's basically Giveth plus block science is kind of the effort here. And Giveth is going to be holding down the cultural side of things, and block science does a lot of the math. We're actually trying to not have like, I think there's enough really talented dev teams out there. We're not going to have our own like dev team building everything. We're just going to create specifications and put out bids to get people to build it for us. We have an amazing advisor team, Simon de la Riviere, who is arguably the inventor of token bonding curves. And of course, Luke and Jordy and Trent from Ocean. We have like a really sick team, and 2 lawyer guys. You can see who the lawyers are. Oh, you know Patrick? Yeah, so we're actually taking applications to be part of the Trusted Seed. So if you guys want to participate in this and help us try to create a new way of creating funding for public goods, you can apply to be a member of the Common Stack Association and the Trusted Seed. You can follow us on Telegram, Twitter. You can check out our GitHub where we have a lot of the simulations going on of conviction voting, bonding curves, and these things. And we actually just put out a new website yesterday, and we're finally like starting to take off. yeah, so that's it. Thank you guys.
Maybe for questions. We can
Oh, yeah.
also use the mic. Thank you. This was awesome. Some questions? Yeah.
So in your bonded curve system, what will give value to the token beside the fact that you could sell them back to the bonded curve?
The value is in the, so I'm going to do,
Oops. Take that.
so the value is future donations. That's the future value stream, because you're creating a system where that is better than the current system of donations. So if you are, doing this Ethereum, there's lots of grant organizations like the Ethereum Foundation, ECF, even Aragon, Status, these organizations that want to see Ethereum education move forward. Currently, they just donate their money and they lose. So if this system exists, they can buy tokens in the bonding curve and use those tokens to collaborate with other people to decide what the best use of funds that are set for, Ethereum education, right? And they have this economics of scale collaborating together, and they receive a token in return that is now a financial asset. So they may lose money, they may make money, but that's infinitely better than the current situation. So really, it's about the trusted. If the trusted seed does a good job and creates an economic incentive, and creates a robust economy and makes good decisions on the funding pool allocations as it is, then funding organizations will want to buy the token and add money to the curve that way. Yeah.
So, regarding funding allocation, I saw in one of your slides you had quadratic voting pushed into this. Do you have anything dealing with quadratic funding? Are you looking at that?
Yeah. Sorry. So we're not actually looking at quadratic funding or quadratic voting ourselves because we don't have a strong identity solution, which is required for these things. And also, quadratic funding is not actually, I don't know, the Ethereum space keeps saying, oh my God, look how much money this is bringing in, quadratic funding. Like, it's actually not. There's one big donor that's like, hey, I'm willing to give up my agency over this funds and put it into this quadratic funding system. So it doesn't actually create extra money. Like, it doesn't create an incentive. It's still just a donor giving money, which I think, like, public good funding currently comes from philanthropists and governments. And I think they're both great solutions to support public goods. Like, they have got us this far. I just would like to see a third option.
Let me get back into this. So quadratic funding, for those who don't know, is the use of pooled funds to fund a public good service. So if you're talking about a donor donating money, that's just the source of the income. What I'm trying to say is that the impact that it can have on the greater community, I think, is very significant.
Yeah.
The source of the fund, you were talking about a harbinger tax. I mean, if you have something like a holding tax or something, like people get charged 0.5% of their wallet balance per year, something like that. Like, that'd be a way of funding. It's just like how you fund it that matters. But I think that as a mechanism, it's useful to benefit the public good. I really like it. I follow the RadX movement quite a lot, and I'm looking forward to what will come out of that space. This looks really cool, by the way. Thank you.
It's I like quadratic voting too. It's a governance mechanism, and that's why it's not fair to compare it to augmented bonding curves, because this is a incentive layer, so it's just different layers.
Have you considered using the collateral as part of some kind of DeFi system? So then also taking an additional return from that and locking stuff up?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know that we'll do it in our first iteration, as DeFi is still a little young, and it's got this little everyone build on Compound, but I definitely want to do it. Like, if I could rebuild Giveth right now, which is the decentralized platform that I use for donations, we would have CDAI as our default, and because there's no point in just having money sit there if it can be put to work. But I totally agree. It's an extra. That's actually something I'm probably missing from the incentive layer, because if you could just say, hey, DeFi, like Pool Together is doing that, I think that's. I'm going to fix my slides.
Also, one question from my side: is it focusing only on education or on everything that is creating a public good in this ecosystem, and only Ethereum?
So we're building components that can be used for any purpose. Our first use case is actually token engineering commons. We want to create the token engineering commons. We want to support the token engineering commons in creating their own ecosystem and their own microeconomy. But we ourselves are just building the infrastructure that other people can use. So I looked in this room and I'm like, hey, what are we doing here? Ethereum education, right? And so that was the example. But in the end, I hope that this kind of, what I would say, like just the most broad way of saying it is like using a microeconomy to create an incentive layer that funds public goods. I think this could be applied to any use case, whether it's environmental issues or helping orphans in a city, or building public infrastructure, or just like doing research on bonding curves. I think you could use this to provide funding, this kind of solution to provide funding for any public good. And maybe it's worth just saying what a public good is. So there's generally 4 types of goods. There's private goods. Hey, I own this computer. I have it's rivalrous and excludable. Yeah. So it's mine, right? But then there are club goods, which are excludable but non-rivalrous, and that would be like a golf club, right? Or some people have these where they have like 4 airplanes and 20 people that all share the reservations of these airplanes, or something like that, right? And then you have common goods, which is rivalrous. Like, let's say there's a debate on whether or not clean air is a public good or a common good, because in the end, if I don't know. But either way, a common good is rivalrous but non-excludable. Or sorry, wait, I'm messing it up. Either way, these are the 4 types of goods, right? Common goods, and then there's public goods. Public goods are abundant, everyone can use them, but you really can't exclude people from it. And that's what we want to create. We want to create more public goods, and we want to create funding for these public goods.
Okay, any more questions?
Yeah, you mentioned earlier that you made the decision to not have the tokens tradable.
Yeah.
What's that? Why is that?
So the question was?
Yeah, so our default setup will make the token non-tradable, because we believe that it's very hard to call it a security if you have a token bonding curve as the only market that you can interact with, because you're basically it becomes more of a utility token vibe, where it's like, oh, I created this token by interacting with a bonding curve, and now I can destroy the token by interacting with a bonding curve. There's no third party. It's me and a smart contract. Also, because unfortunately security laws are a thing, and we worry that if you make it transferable, that you're more likely to fall into this, like, oh, you're issuing a security, Americans can't be involved. And for me, it's important that we don't have that. Like, what we're building, we're just building infrastructure. We're not going to launch any of these things, right? That's we're not even building a platform. We're just building a code base, and people can deploy it themselves, that kind of thing, right? So we don't have nodes. It's like people are using Ethereum or XDAI or some other side chain, any EVM compatible chain, RSK.
Is this a set of contracts?
Yeah, it's going to be a set of contracts, some front ends, and cultural playbooks, right? Cultural playbooks and technical playbooks. Those are our deliverables to actually create, as well as simulations for the CAD/CAD simulations and how the CAD/CAD simulations relate to the code, all of that documentation. Those are our deliverables. Then people will take those things, they can tweak them a little bit if they like, deploy them themselves, and our default situation will be that the token is non-transferable and that the only market that you can interact with is the bonding curve. That also just simplifies things for us, because our goal is we're trying to do this iteratively. We don't think that we're going to get it right the first time. We're focusing on just the augmented bonding curve in our first iteration. Then we're going to focus on the GiveItDApp 2.0, then which is the proposal layer, and then we have conviction voting in our governance layer. And each time that we deploy this, we will improve the augmented bonding curve, and we'll add more features. So we're really trying to cut the scope as much as we can and cut the variables that could interfere with our perfecting our models and our simulations. But in the end, it would be nicer if the token was tradable, because that adds another use case for the token.
I'm not so sure, because it would mess with the economics of allowing people to engage with the bonding curve. It's cheaper for me to trade it than for me to sell it back to the bonding curve, right?
This is okay. So this is the first, like, what you would think, right? Oh, it's like, oh, but if I can just go to a market, like, I don't have to pay the exit tax, for instance, right? But the other issue there, the other interesting thing there is if there is a market, now this is another use case for the token. So people would have had to interact with the token bonding curve and create more tokens to provide liquidity for that market. So now when you add a use case for your system, for your economy, your token, then now you're actually creating a demand for the token that wasn't there before. So it is debatable. Like, honestly, it might end up hurting the public good because you have less exit tax fees, but maybe it supports its question. This is why we have to do simulations, testing, go live, see what happens, put that in the model, and go on.
You can't really make them untradeable. At best, you can make them not user-friendly to trade. But what people do, and we've seen that with DAO Stack on the DXDAO, they make some account which all do the untradable asset, and then they can trade the accounts. So the choice is not between untradable and tradable. It's mostly on user-friendly tradable or non-user-friendly tradable.
So I'm just being completely transparent with you guys. It's not about in the end, if I got to choose tradable or non-tradable, I would start with non-tradable just to reduce the scope for the modeling, but then I would open it up right away. The problem is this is security law stuff, right? So if you say, hey, I'm doing my best to make it non-transferable, then that's something you can stand behind. But if somebody comes after you and says, hey, this is security, I mean, like DXDAO, for instance, Martin Kopelman was telling everyone to put it in a safe. Put your tokens in a safe, and then you can move them wherever you want, right? Like, it's like, okay, whatever, but clearly they made them non-transferable to avoid securities issues. But
so you mentioned security a couple of times. Is it because of the token bonding curve that it is classified as a security? Because
it's not. I don't think it's security.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it could be just a commodity.
Yeah, I don't think it's a security, but you always have to, there's a lot of paranoia in this space, and I would say relatively unfounded paranoia that the SEC is going to come after anyone who issues a token, where it's clear that they've only gone after people who've raised billions of dollars or outright scams. And I think the SEC has actually been way chiller than we give them credit for. And they probably should be harder on us, but they seem to actually allow us to do innovative things. And I think that this is innovative enough that we would kind of be able to play in the gray zone without any issues. But we'll see, Our lawyers think so. That's the good thing. That's thumbs up on them. Yeah.
I was just thinking if any of your team members or you would be up for coming back maybe next week or something. Until we're here, and maybe we could even go deeper in the code itself, the technical part. I don't know, Jeff, or who is working on this part.
Yeah, we want to come out here way more often than we have been. We just launched our website yesterday, and we were head deep into all sorts of stupid stuff, like emails not going straight to spam boxes and stuff like that. So we'll get out here and be hanging out as much as we can.
Thank you. Thanks for coming. Oh, cool. That was really nice and inspiring. And I hope that this can be solved, because this is, like you say, a burning problem in the space, how to fund the public goods. So Martin is exploring ways how developers can work as entrepreneurs, or I don't know, how would you describe the entrepreneurship for nerds? So let's see, maybe next time you can already include some of these things that...
Exactly. So I'm not a crypto expert yet. So my topic is more about...
Let's see.
Maybe
maybe there will be questions or something. Yeah, we're not just a crypto.
Yeah, so the premise of this is like that I understand WizardAmigos as a kind of a community and a group of people that are encouraging remote work, freelance work, and try to encourage the average person to be a programmer, for example, like learning programming, learning coding, and so on. So I'm a software engineer. I learned, I went to university 17 years ago and worked in the telecom industry for 17 years. Then I moved to, I became a project manager, then moved to finally, first to Philippines, then to Taiwan, and finally I'm studying MBA for the reason of I want to develop myself and learn new stuff. Yeah, and why did I meet the WizardAmigos is because in Taipei there was the Crosslink, the Ethereum event where I met them because I'm interested in the material. So anyway, so how can I contribute to this round or to the learners? Is I want to talk about entrepreneurships for nerds. So and why is it important? Maybe not only because not maybe you don't want to be an entrepreneur, or for example myself, I don't know if I'm a nerd. I don't like categories, right? So who of you considers himself as a nerd?
I mean, is it connected to programming?
Yeah,
or
right.
Nerd in
So
way?
it can be so many things. It can be some people like it's a stigma from external people. Oh, you're a nerd. You have funny glasses. You have funny hats. Oh, you're a software developer. You sit at home. You are sitting at home and don't have friends. You might be introverted. You have special hobbies, or you are a crypto enthusiast. All of them is nerds, and or you have a different lifestyle. So I consider myself, I don't know. I'm an introvert, so maybe other people see me as a nerd. But I don't like to categorize things because it makes discrimination and stigmatize and so on. So we should openly accept and respect every kind of people. But what we can agree on, nerd is off the mainstream, and I think every nerd has good potential to be an entrepreneur, because an entrepreneur, I will explain in a few slides, the benefits, or not the benefits, the characteristics, and why most of us should look into this, even if you don't want to be an entrepreneur, but you can have a look and understand how entrepreneurs think, and then check if that's something, at least partly, you can look into in your future activities. Okay, it's not a slide. So if we talk about a new software developer who's looking into freelancing work, is that already entrepreneurship, or is that managing a business, or what is an entrepreneur? So freelancing, of course, you know, is you take care of your own small business, of your own profit, but you work for a client and supply your services, and you're managing your own small business. If you're managing a big business or be part of a big business of a company, you are responsible for the success and of the growth of the whole company, but you can be employed by the company, or you can be part of the founders. And you are doing it according to a vision or direction from the founders, for example. Now, the entrepreneur is basically usually part of the founders. Entrepreneurs think different. They are affine to solve problems of people, and always looking for opportunity and prepared to grasp it. Means opportunity If you look around, like entrepreneurs go around the world and they see something, that doesn't work well. Can I make it better? And can I make it not better to get a profit from it, but to serve the community or the people or something? This is the kind of an entrepreneurial spirit. And once they found the opportunity, they need to be quick to grasp it and to realize it, and also to develop a vision. And I think we have two people at least that expressed the vision of something. Like we had a future of work from Alex, and also yours is also, you have belief, you have a vision, right? And you can describe it and picturize it, and constantly learning and be an expert in many aspects. And actually, some of the points is characteristics of a nerd, right? Because nerds also constantly learn new stuff and so on, and sometimes think different. So why should we care, even if we are not want to be an entrepreneur? But as an employee or as a freelancer, you work for somebody, you work for a company, or you work for the founder, and you should know. It's good to understand how those people think, and to be able to deliver your service in the best way for that mission, for the vision, for that founder, for your boss in the short end. And even if you are so there's many benefits to that, and also it can make you a better person because you will not be so selfish. Entrepreneurs is said they don't think about money. They think about other people and how to help people, and the money will come to them once they have a good idea and be able to express it. So you become a better person in the sense of you are not so egoistic, you work for others. So what is the success factors of entrepreneurs? The most important is like serve others and not yourself. You have an impact to other people's lives. So don't strive for money, because money will eventually come to you. If you have a good idea and you can express it, people will invest in your idea and people will buy your product if it helps to solve a problem of other people. And the next success factor is clear vision. Means you should subconsciously believe in it and picture it out in your mind, so you are able to articulate and describe it visually. That's the bad example for not being visual. But yeah, you need to convince other people from your idea, and even your employees or your followers. They need to follow your vision, so you need to have a very high picture and very high detail. The next thing is focus. Many people say execution is the key to success of entrepreneurs. Means you can have a lot of ideas. Everybody has ideas and are very creative. And some people say, if I share this idea with my community, maybe somebody will steal it from you. But that's not the right approach. You should share it and get feedback for your idea. And because what differentiates the successful entrepreneur from others is you will actually execute it, and you will focus on it to make it happen. So it's okay to share your idea, but stay on it and realize it. Dare to dream big. It means go outside of your comfort zone. Talk to people. For example, as I mentioned, I'm an introvert by nature, and for me it's always a little bit exciting to stand somewhere and speak somewhere. But I'm challenging myself and practice. So all like nerdy software developers and introverts should take that step to go a little bit outside of the comfort zone. Is already the first step. Keeping safe and out of danger will not bring any advancement, right? The mindset is can do. Grow, mentor yourself, always learn, and surround yourself with people that are smarter than you. So if you go into a meeting and you are the smartest guy in the room, there's no value for yourself. So like we go to meetups and so on, and we expect we are not the smartest in the room, and we always want to learn. That's very important. Learn how to work with other people, which is a special challenge for introverted people. to read emotions, to be able to see how the other one is reacting to what you are saying and how you are perceived in what you're doing. For example, as I stand here, what am I doing with my hands and with my body language, and how the people are reacting? And control your own emotions in terms of be calm, don't be angry. If you get feedback that is not as you expect, you should understand, okay, but that's the way the people perceive you, right? And okay, diversity in terms of dealing with people is very important. We are the best example. We have so many nationalities here, and we complement each other's skills and culture as well. So we should embrace that. And also, as some entrepreneurs always want to do everything themselves. They are focused on their idea. But in the end, you need to share the load to other people and be able to delegate your things. For example, like me, introvert, I'm not a good presenter. I need somebody who can sell my idea, who is really an expert in selling the idea and presenting and be emotional on stage. Yeah. So you need at least two of them. One is the nerd, the one who invents stuff, and the other one who can sell it to other people, right? So the stereotypical nerdy introvert software developer already has many of those traits. Like we are very focused. We want to fix that bug. We want to solve that problem, and eager to learn and have a lot of ideas. But some things we can learn is to collaborate with people and to talk. And another thing is the open source contributors, like some of us, many of us, or supporting the idea is another very high success factor, because you are sharing to other people's benefit. So yeah, thank you. So yeah, the best example, or a very good example of an entrepreneurial approach is the WizardAmigos. Yeah. So when I see you, I find, wow, that are entrepreneurs. Okay, I will skip this one. A few very important concepts I like to share from the entrepreneurial world. CPS, customer problem solution, and it must be in that order, because there is no value if you have a solution for something where there is no problem. So if you are a hacker and you do some cool algorithm, but it doesn't solve an actual real life world problem, that's cool, but we need to find an actual problem for that. And the other thing, if you solve a problem, but nobody is interested in that problem, or nobody has that problem, then also no value for other people. So you need to have your customer first priority, because you want to solve problems for people. Only then will be able to be rewarded. Especially in the software world, fail fast, fail cheap is easy to do, because we just deal with software. We don't produce something. So very important is like, yeah, it's okay to fail. It's okay to do something wrong, as long as you learn from the mistake and you think about it, reflect on it, but don't stay on the past and look forward to go on. And maybe you have to, and how to do that effectively is with an MVP, a minimum viable product. It means it doesn't cost much. If you fail now, you bring your software, your app or whatever to the market, and you get feedback, which is important from your customer, and they say, we cannot use it. Then it's okay. You get that, and you work on that feedback result and move on and change the direction, the strategy. So fail fast, fail cheap, which in software it's easy to do. Yeah. So don't be afraid to fail. I have, Thomas Edison said a funny quote, I have not failed, I have just found 1,000 ways that won't work. So another term is pivot, which is very related to that. Pivot, yeah, before I learned those stuff, I thought, yeah, I know that from Excel, the Excel calculation table, I can do some pivot tables and do a lot of data stuff. So pivot, if you're not familiar, is basically change, and change the direction. So if you're an entrepreneur and you work on something and you see it basically doesn't work, then don't be afraid to change it. Change your concept based on the feedback that you get or based on the result that you earned. And you need to, see the point that you need to change. So successful entrepreneurs, they pivot many times until they finally get to the final goal. To invent, you need a good imagination and a pile of junk. Also Thomas Edison, he had must have a lot of light bulbs, junks. And so opportunity means don't only look for opportunities to improve other people's lives, but also be prepared to grasp it. It means you need to have some tools. So if you are really interested in that, then learn on and check those tools and procedures, because entrepreneurship is nothing incidentally. There's a concept, there is a process, and you can learn that. And with that, you are prepared to finally, if there's an opportunity, to grasp it and to execute, right? Yeah. And there's another, like, what is entrepreneurship? The key things are energy, passion, vision, grasp opportunity, take risks. And there are I put some other quotes and mindset which are kind of interesting. Like some people say, why should I do this? And the entrepreneur says, why not? Yeah. So entrepreneurs have a different mindset, and you don't need to, you can first learn it or see how it is, and then you might want to think about it. Is this something for me, for my own personality? Can I change? But if you are, so that's that. And another characteristics of entrepreneurs, and there is no off button in entrepreneurs' mind and so on. So there's a different type of people, and you can develop to that if you like, or just know how entrepreneurs work to be successful, to work with entrepreneurs. So that's that. And I have now I have 8 minutes. I have a small project, like, as I said, I'm a software engineer, but I learned it a long time ago, when Flash and Shockwave and Dreamweaver was still state of the art, and now it's forbidden to use and dangerous. And so I'm trying to get in a little bit again, and it's easy for me to learn languages or just apply. So anyway, like, I give you an example for my small approach to be, not to be an entrepreneur, but to try to solve some problem, okay? I live in Taipei. If you are in a Western country, you drive the bus, you just enter, you drive the bus will just move and you are okay. But in Taipei, you need to grab something immediately, or you will fall like this, because the bus driver will immediately speed up to catch up time. And then there's a red light, which is like 100 meters away. It's easy to see. The bus will go and brake just in front of the red light. It's foreseeable. So why is he doing that? It's very inconvenient and dangerous for elderly people. A lot of elderly people take the Taipei bus, and they are so skilled to immediately grab something so not to fall. Yeah. And sometimes they they close the door very late. They're still driving. So it's kind of dangerous. And it seems nobody cares, or there's so many bus operators, they either don't know or they don't care. So what can we do? The idea is, okay, let's give the people an app, because Taipei people like to use apps also to locate where's my next bus coming, how long do I need to wait. Give them something. If you enter the bus, you have the opportunity to rate how's my bus driver and how's the vehicle, because it can be also like smoking and belching and not good for health and noisy and stuff. And then gather that data, give it to the government or the bus company or whatever. Just like the second thought, what can we do with that data to improve the safety of riding a bus in Taipei? So this is like a prototype, an app prototype, let's say. You go into the bus and you see immediately which bus am I on, from where to where does it go, what's my plate number. And then the bus company can map the time and the plate number, who's that good bus driver or that bad bus driver, with the objective to educate the bus driver or reward him if he's a good one. And same for the car. So that's it. And why should somebody use that? I will explain later. So the resources that I'm using is in Taipei, they have, and in many other cities, I guess, they have APIs to locate the buses. And this is the list of APIs. You can, if you are at the bus station, you can check where's the next bus is approaching in X minutes. But the big problem with that API is it has okay, this API is implemented by this application. Every type A people knows that, where you can see how far is my bus away, and at this station in 3 minutes this bus is coming, and so on. So there are some full implementation, and the API also gives you the shape of the bus line that you can just map on a map. So that's quite easy to do, very convenient. But the challenge is here is this API or the whole system has a 10 to 30 seconds delay. So it means if you're at the bus station and the bus tells you I'm 60 seconds away, then you know based on the timestamp of the information there's a 20 seconds delay, I can adjust. But if you enter the bus and you compare my location, GPS coordinates, with the system will give you information from 20 seconds ago. So how can I realize my goal? I enter the bus and know what is my bus. So the API gives you that option. My first prototype of this, because I'm an old developer, I don't know the new tools. App development, I know there is like what's the name, Angular and stuff. So that's old already. See, it changes every time. So the simple thing is like, okay, let's make a web thing first. And I know like Angular is actually, if it's app or web, there's not much difference, right? So I made some web thing and then get the location of the user, analyze the nearby buses. And now the challenge is, because the information is 20 seconds old, how can I match my current location with information that is 20 seconds old? And the goal is to return the most likely bus that you are on. If there are 3 buses around, that could be difficult. Okay, so I use an Ubuntu server at home running a Node.js, which is still, I don't know why we don't use like Nginx or something. That maybe we can discuss later, and tell me, why do I need this just to put a website up? I think there's no sense, right? So there's a landing page. It will receive the GPS coordinates from the HTML page, and it will execute Perl scripts. I'm a Perl guy. I know it's already dead, but that's what I can do best. Executes Perl script, which use curl to get the data from the public API, and then display the data, and have another mapping service to tell me which are the buses around, because I still don't have an algorithm that makes it tell me which is exactly the bus where I'm on. So the Perl scripts receive the location from all this and then curl it to the public API. Okay, so I show you a small demo. Because we don't have time, I show you only screenshots. Yeah, but it's so small. Anyway, if I execute the demo here, the use will be, because we are in Chiang Mai, the location. So the website will ask you, can I get your location? Yes. So what's my bus? And then it will give you immediately the GPS coordinates. You can open it in your mobile phone. And then I click tell me, and then it will send these coordinates to my server in Taipei. And since we are in Chiang Mai, there are no buses around from Taipei. And that takes too long. Yeah, takes too long. So what will happen is that you will receive the coordinates, and for example here, then there's another button which says show me the result, and I reduce the radius to 200 meters, because where can you go in 20 seconds with 50 kilometers per hour is 200 meters. So what I already did is I'm here, and this is the nearest closest buses who can move within 20 seconds. So which one am I actually on? Because in theory, I'm moving with the bus. So that's the challenge. And then I get the information from the API. For example, I can click on it, line 27 to 70. This is the plate number, the distance from my position, but 17 seconds ago. And the other bus is 200 meters away, but like super old information. So, but normally between 10 to 30 seconds, the information is old.
Somewhere in minutes even.
Yeah. Yeah. So once this works, how to incentivize people to use that, and then we come to the entrepreneurial thing, like how to make it work, how to make money out of it. You could cooperate with partners who are where you can collect points or stickers or something, like 7-Eleven, your favorite coffee shop, and say, okay, if you enter the bus and you do that, you will get a point, and next time if you do this 5 times, you can get a coffee. And those partners, they can advertise on that platform, for example, and with that get some traction and get users and info and data. And other use cases, I just was playing around. You can also check the speed of the bus. So these are all buses right now on the way in Taipei, not right now, but during that time. The color code is the speed. Green means 30 kilometers per hour. Yellow is between 40 and 50, and red means over 50. So we can also use that information and say, hey, on that street, you are too fast. The operator should do something. And these are the buses that currently at that time are more than 50 kilometers per hour. Yeah, so my open questions would be ideas for the location algorithm. I have my own ideas, but it's maybe not the most efficient one. Then how do I do front-end development? What is currently used? You can tell me later. Front-end design. So what is the basic things that I can use, or maybe we have other resources. Yeah, I'm using a small old laptop at home. What is your recommendation for some maybe free or cheap backend host? And Node.js versus Nginx, your opinions. And other ideas, what can you do with that data if you are on the bus and you have the opinions of the people riding that bus? It's like an Uber. Are you satisfied with the bus driver? What did he do good? What did he do not good? And so on. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
You have a question? Just a second to fix the mic. Okay.
Like there's like a lot of technical questions, and I imagine, of course, that like some peer-to-peer way of architecting this, maybe reusing the computational storage from people who use the app in a peer-to-peer way that could eventually already solve some of the cost problems. But on the other hand, because how to finance this in the first place, maybe this is something where we could even try to experiment with token bonding curves to make this into some kind of game, so that there will be some funding for this basically common good. But I mean, I'm not the expert, but like this would be interesting, because then if some cool idea could come from that, then maybe that would get more funding into this, so that actually the implementation could be I mean, there can be lots of ideas about the implementation, but yeah, without funding, it's always hard.
Yeah, and I think because this is supposed to be for public good, for public safety, and government and other organizations could be interested.
Do you have maybe some idea how to use a token bonding curve to get this started?
I mean, this is the thing, right? If you can create a financial abstraction, then you have a new funding method, basically. So, but we're not there yet. Like, there's no even bonding curves really out there yet. So.
Oh, all right. How long do you think that it will take until this can be actually used by a project? Because this will probably also take some time to get to the level where actually a lot of users start using it. But so if it goes into that direction, maybe a token bonding curve could be used to create some kind of token. So there was like the example of Starbucks coins, and you get a coffee. I mean, it could be just something that is basically of low value just to play with the technology. I mean, who knows? And then in the future, in half a year or a year, maybe can get more serious.
Yeah, Aragon Black created an implementation for Aragon, and it's you can use it now if you want to play with it on mainnet. It just hasn't reached like the full app so that it's easy to do on the UI. You have to go into the CLI and like implement it, but it's there. So technically you can do it, but it's all for DAOs with a small project like yourselves, right? And then what they do is instead of like an exit tax, they have a tap. So the collateral pool, you can kind of just like take money out of it. So.
Yeah. Do you have any other questions regarding the entrepreneur slide? Was it actually interesting? Who is considering himself entrepreneur? I think at least you.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
No, I mean, honestly, for me, I've been in this for many years. It's nice to revisit, but I feel that a lot of people just didn't think of that yet. So it's a nice guide to inspire them to maybe just try. I mean, it's
the idea was born when Alex asked me, how can we convince software developers to become freelancer and work remotely? And freelancing, is one step to entrepreneurship. You need to take care of your own small business, right? And then if you want to do that, and if you know that entrepreneurial thinking stuff, maybe you have to get some more idea or confidence to do that.
Yeah, maybe one thing what I feel that all people who go into entrepreneurship these days should know that there is not just one way for startups to make money and that traditional VC model, but it's also grants, it's also creating, it's especially, I don't want everybody to now go into entrepreneurship and then like under the VC train. This is a horror story for me.
Yeah, that's another, the new way.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And for web and stuff, I mean, this we can happily help. I don't know, Claros, our sponsor of today's event, do you want to share for about what you're doing? And because if we start fighting with whatever we will do, he has a solution for it.
Decentralized justice.
Yes, decentralized justice system. Yes. There you go. Oh. Thank you, Martin.
Do you have any other one?
We don't have any other, but can you open it in some other computer? Alex? Yeah. Then this computer can come back. Here, can you put it in?
Yeah, just put it in.
I can't. I have just two hands. I mean, others who are also here, I would be happy if you share also something next time, because we are all, I mean, the people who share today is just random. I mean, Grieve has actually like a super prepared thing, but others created it like yesterday or before yesterday, so you're welcome to, I mean, I would love to hear what you're doing, but next time maybe.
Do you have Telegram on this?
Yes, you can come here.
Do you have Telegram, so I send you the link?
Yeah. Alex?
Yeah, I send you the link.
Alex? How do you, does he have a, okay, it looks like it's good. Telegram on WizardAmigos. Can we send it there?
I think this is nice in a way that we get to talk to competitors without like doing like a big agenda.
I mean, usually you saw how our meetups look. We don't have any talks even. We just hack there. So this is like a special event.
There's like 5-6 people usually right here. Like 12 people. It's a good event.
This is true, but yeah.
If you build it, they will come.
Yeah,
Here you go. So here's the mouse. Let's see. I mean, camera facing the camera. It's really great. I mean, computer.
Okay.
Just no screen visible. It's working.
So I'm gonna leave in the
Okay,
middle of your
okay.
talk.
Yeah, Old City is like quite a walk. It's like 30 minutes. Oh, are we still the science system?
Loading.
Yeah, it seems to be loading.
Are you opening something?
No, it's just that it's loading the presentation. Ooh, offline signing has been visible by your.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
But we have those.
Oh, that's the thing.
Sorry.
Uh,
That's so much about the what did we say? Improv.
where do I go? Oops, that's the
Wi-Fi
8.
below, you see?
What?
Here, this one?
Oh, okay.
No, it's
I know.
already connected. You just have to open like a
So like I usually open purple.com.
really.
Nope.
Let's try. This is not another one.
Which one?
I don't know. Yeah, this is not the problem. You just have to find the
Okay.
clear the cache.
So,
So what's the Bitcoin we have after this?
It's a flash.
Is it both guy walking distance or 5 minutes?
5-10 minutes.
So if many people go, just grab a graph.
nope. Username invalid.
Yeah.
I assume you talk basic or something. I have another one.
Sorry.
3. Oh, okay. Perhaps it's auto-completed to something I did not want.
I mean, it's like all my friends. So yeah, friends that I never see.
Did you stay on the island?
No,
Cookies was where.
you saw what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was
Much better.
Come on, like we
Island,
were stranded
crap.
on the island.
Yeah.
Oh,
You were.
And he's a parity guy, actually.
Really?
Now I'm ETC.
With Africa.
I met him at the Vancouver.
Show anyway. Is there
He joined Parity as I left Parity.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Can you check this?
I don't know, that's strange.
Just do we use someone else's computer?
Oh,
Yeah, no, it doesn't work with Apple. I think is internet working?
yeah, it seems to be oh, okay, but it's quite low. Is it my phone? No. I can use my Wi-Fi, I think. Oh, okay, can try again? Oh, okay. I think it's just that this is lower than my 4G. So, hi again to everyone. And we're gonna see a few applications built on Kleros, and also a small presentation of Kleros. So first, what is Kleros? So it's a dispute resolution system for decentralized applications. So Kleros by itself does not really do anything, but you can have an application. For example, you want to make a decentralized eBay, or you want to make an application with a freelancer which are getting paid to complete tasks. You can connect those applications to Kleros to solve the dispute that this application can have. On where Kleros places itself on compared to the project. So you have project which will be formal system like Ethereum. In Ethereum, you don't need any subjectivity. You can make a smart contract where you trade token A against token B. There is nothing subjective about that. There is no involvement of something which is not on this blockchain. And so you have a formal system which normally should always have the right result, but which is really limited
in a just transfer of asset on this particular chain. On the other side of the spectrum, you will have governance, where you have a lot of people which are going to take a decision. So it can be, oh, what are we going to do with this money? How should this project be structured? And there is not really a right or wrong decision. It's more about finding a decision that is seems okay by most of the people participating in the governance. And then you have dispute resolution, on which I would put Augur and Claros, where in this case you have some level of subjectivity. You will have sometimes people are going to disagree on the result, but most of the time you still have a right or wrong answer. So if you have a dispute between a freelancer and someone who gave this freelancer a job to make a website, and you see that there is no website, even if your computer cannot just deduce itself that the freelancer should not be paid, most of the humans in the room, they would agree, no, you should not be paid, you haven't made the work. So it's slightly subjective, but way less subjective than a formal system. Way more subjective than a formal system and way less subjective than a governance system. So now let's go to some application which run or are running on top of Claros. And the first application that was made was Dodgy on trial. And on this one, I'm gonna bounce on Griff Talk, where it was saying, yeah, don't just design a perfect paper and then implement it, make some test or simulation. So in this case, the goal was to try Claros cryptoeconomic incentive with a low risk application, which consisted of making a list of pictures of dodges. So how it worked? You have Alice, which wants to add a picture of Dodge on this list of verified Dodge picture. She's going to put a deposit. And if no one complains, the item is going to be accepted. These Dodge pictures are going to be added to the list, and Alice is going to get her deposit back. Now, Alice tried to put a picture of a CryptoKitty, which should not belong to this list. And you have Bob, which have been watching the list, which sees that this will not belong to the list. So he's going to put a deposit and create a challenge. You have an arbitration system, which are going to rule that this CryptoKitty is invalid and does not belong to the list of dodges. So Alice is going to lose her deposit, and Bob is going to be rewarded for protecting the list from malicious submissions. The system which are going to decide whether this submission was malicious or correct is Claros. So Claros is a staking system. So you have token, PNK. And if you want to be a juror, you stake some PNK. And basically, each PNK is one chance of being drawn. So a few PNK are going to be drawn. And if it's one of yours, you're going to be a juror in this case. So here, these 3 people had one of the PNK drawn, and they're going to be eligible to vote in the dispute. If you vote coherently with the final result, you're going to be awarded arbitration fees that we've seen have been paid there. And you're also going to win part of the token of people who did not vote coherently. So if you have those 2 actors which vote that it's not a dodge and she votes it's a dodge, she's going to lose a part of her PNK to those 2 actors. And those 2 actors are going to get arbitration fees. So there is an appeal mechanism. We're not going to speak that much about it today. But basically, it's a shading coin-based system where if you think that the other people are going to vote honestly, you have to vote honestly because you are you get some reward when you vote with the majority, and you get penalized when you don't. Obviously, even if you are honest, sometimes you're not going to vote with the majority, but that's probably going to more or less even out across a few disputes. But if you are constantly taking bribe or voting randomly or just voting the wrong answer, you're going to, over time, lose your token and being drawn less and less. So this is the redistribution I was talking. You have Bob, which have paid some arbitration fees. You have some people who did not vote for the final result, so they're going to lose PNK, and the others who voted for the final result are going to win PNK. So let's make a small experiment. you have to pick a number, and your goal is to pick the number which most of the people are going to pick in this room. So you want to pick the same number as most of the other people. Okay, I let you 3 seconds to pick your number. Okay, who picked this one? 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 Oh, this one? This one? This one? This one? Oh, this one. Okay, so in this case, you would have been losing a few tokens, and everyone else would have split your token in the arbitration fee. So this is the principle of shading point, where even if any of the number could have been chosen, there is one number which stands out and where people are going to gravitate toward, coordinate toward, which in this case it's 1,000 because it seems to be simpler because it has a lot of zero and it's quite round. And in the case of Claros, it's not going to be a number which looks good, but it's going to be a decision which looks good, so an honest decision. So in the case of this CryptoKitty, well, okay, it's not a dodge, so you can vote to reject because you expect other people to vote to reject too. So that was Dodge and Trial, where we got more than 1,000 images which were submitted and more than 100 which resulted in disputes. Because it was a cryptoeconomic experiment, we had put some bounties for people which would manage to get a cat accepted in the experiment. And so that's why you got a lot of people trying to put picture of cats and get a lot of disputes like that. So you can see the result of the list. So here in green, a picture which got accepted, that you can see that there are picture of dodges. You can see here some picture which were rejected, which were mostly pictures of cats. Sometimes just picture of cats, sometimes they try to bribe people. Sometimes it was more ambiguous whether there were not doge, because here that was picture of Venetian doge. Some people had quite some fun. Here, is it a doge or a fox? We don't really know. Is it a cat or a doge? You don't really know. So there's having a few edge cases, but basically all pictures which were clearly dodges get accepted, and all pictures which were clearly not dodges got rejected when there were some dispute. Actually, there was a case where a cat got into the list just because no one saw it and no one created a dispute. So on the bribing, simple bribe, where you just want to pay people when they vote to accept your cat. So they were quite naive because they were not even really proving that they were going to pay the bribe. So if someone say, "Oh, I'm going to bribe you," probably going to be malicious. So are you going to trust him that he's going to bribe you and actually pay you the bribe? Probably not, unless he can prove it with a smart contract. Sometimes a bit more advanced when they prove that they had the money to pay the bribe. But all of them got rejected. And this is, what is it? Any idea what is it? Is it a cat or is it a dodge? Yeah. So that's also one of the other two pictures of cat which made it. It's because it was a cat which really looked like a dodge. So that's to show the limitation of the system. If some facts of the world cannot be determined by most of the human, no cryptocurrency system is gonna help you in this case. Just people could not realize it was not a dodge, so they let it go through. And yeah, this was actually quite a good find. I was not expecting to find a cat looking so much like a dodge. So now on the Claros ecosystem, you have Claros on which you have an escrow system which is connected to. So an escrow system where I want to pay you to make a website, or I want to pay you to buy you a fridge, whatever kind of assets you're gonna give me against some money. I can put the money in escrow, and if you give me this asset, or if you give me this service, I unlock the money from the escrow. But if there is a dispute whether or not this asset or service was provided, you can create a dispute, and the juror can decide if you should get your money back, or if the asset or service provider should be paid. The token registry, which is same idea as Dodge and Trial, except that here the goal is to have a list of tokens which are verified, and on that you have some exchange which pooled and which are pulling data from it, and we are gonna soon be able to add the Dutch chicks. Realishow, which in this case is an oracle, which is a bit different because in this case it's not an application which was made by people of Kleros, but which is an external application which is arbitrator agnostic. So people can choose their arbitrator, and Kleros is one of the arbitrators they can choose. So Realishow, it's an oracle where you ask a question, for example, who won the last presidential election of the US? And you want to have an on-chain answer on that. So you can use it to make prediction markets. You can use it to make an insurance. So you can make some crop insurance, which will be paying farmer if you have a season which is dry, but all kinds of chain know if the season was dry or not. You need to ask questions and you need to have correct answers. And here it's an application which rely on Realishow. So you can see that you have some ecosystem which is being created. And you can see this composability where you have applications which are connected to Kleros, and some applications are connected to the application connected to Kleros. And sometimes here, for example, the escrow system is going to be connected to the token registry because it's going to only allow people to use the token which are in the token registry. So you see all this interoperability between applications, which I think is quite interesting. So this token registry, where you can submit some tokens, so same idea as on trial. You submit a token with a deposit. If no one complains, it gets accepted. Sometimes people are going to challenge them and they're going to create disputes. So here are a few examples of tokens which got rejected. This one, I guess, is because the image quality was not sufficient compared to the requirement. Here, they put a white background instead of a transparent background. Here, they added the name of the project to the logo, where they were just asked for the logo. Here, they forgot a C, a capital C, to Spong chain. So that was not because of a rejection of sex work. That was just because of orthographic issue. This one, the logo was not perfect, but you really had to zoom in to find out some part of the logo being cut. And this one that would have been on the name because they call it AgriChain utility token. In practice, no one ever calls token like that. Utility token is probably something they made to try to make it not look like a security, but no one ever used this name. And people adding token are supposed to put the name which are used and not an official name by the token creators. So for just adding a token, you just need to verify that the token name, logo, ticker, and SRM address are correct. But you may also want to know if this token has some specific characteristics. So you may want to have a list of good token, and you have to define what is good token for you. So you have Edfinex, which made a badge specifying what were their conditions to be a good token. And again, that's a created registry, and you can add this badge to tokens. And you have a challenge mechanism which can create dispute as in the Dodge trial. So for example, some projects wanted to have this Edfinex badge because then that could allow them to get listed on an exchange. And some people found out that the profile of their CTO was faked because they claim to be a senior researcher of blockchain research laboratory in Oxford, and apparently there is no entity with that name. Some people call the university and they say, no, we don't know this guy. And he claimed to be senior researcher, but no one ever found any publication by his name, and there is nothing to be found on this profile. So people found that the profile was fake. So they challenge the badge put to this token by Airchain, and they make some arguments to show that it was not satisfying the criterion, and this got rejected. So here you see that Kleros is acting as some due diligence tool, decentralized due diligence tool. You have other the other badges. Some are really hard to get through crypto system badges. I think there is only perhaps 2 tokens which manage to get that. Application looking at this list of tokens. So Uniswap, who knows Uniswap in the room? Okay, perhaps half of the room. So which is an exchange using Bondi curve, as Griff was speaking earlier. The main version is using a list of tokens that is made by or created by the creator of Uniswap, so centrally. And here you have uniswap.ninja, which is basically Uniswap. It says that it's pulling this list of tokens from the token registry. So you don't need to have one centralized party maintaining the list anymore to get a really decentralized exchange. So token created registry was probably the most used application of Kleros up to date, where we got more than 300,000 worth of dollars which pass on deposit through the registry. And we may have perhaps like 300 tokens and something like 100 badges which were put to token in this registry. So let's go on another application, which is the escrow application. So in this case, you want to pay John to do some marketing service for you. So you're gonna put John's address, you're gonna put the amount you want to pay him. You're gonna also need to determine what are the services which need to be provided. And if everything goes right, you're gonna unlock the money for him. And if you have a problem, you can create a dispute, and both parties are gonna be able to put evidence to support their side. So here, yeah, that's you ask to pay someone to put a Lamasog marketplace. You can pay in DAI, and here you can find the token that's pulled from the token registry. So this list is also decentralized, and you put the information on your service. So you have either some general service where you can write whatever you want, but you have also some pre-filled template for well-used application of the escrow.
We have a question.
Yeah.
I was wondering, for the jurors or something, can you select from like a specialized pool?
Oh yeah. So there is.
For something that is code-related in the pull request, I want to maybe that people approximately know some basics of coding and they will read it.
Yeah. So there is a hierarchical court system. So you choose on your application which kind of court are gonna solve these issues. So here you have some general service which do not require any specific skills. So here anyone can be a juror. Sometimes you have some services of cryptocurrency exchange between multiple chains. Like you want to, I don't know, you want to send some, you want to sell some Ripple for some ETH. You don't have any bridge between Ripple and Ethereum, and so in this case, you can put the ETH in escrow. If you get the Ripple, you unlock and they get the ETH. But then if you have a dispute, you would have some jurors which are going to look at the Ethereum chain and at the Ripple chain, and they're going to see whether the Ripple has been given to the right address. And in this case, that's a subcourt of blockchain, not blockchain technical, like they don't need to code, but they need to at least be able to use the blockchain explorer, and that will be pulled from this pool of jurors. Yeah.
So in order to be a juror, you just buy the token, right?
Yeah, and you stake them, and when you stake them, you specify on which subcourt you want to stake them.
What stops someone from 51% staking?
So if you had the majority of the token, you could effectively choose the result of all the disputes. So we want to avoid people to doing the 15% attack. So first, to buy 15% of the token is going to be quite expensive, and it's going to be even more expensive than the current market price, because if you try to buy even more, you will run into market depth. Okay, perhaps you can buy 1 million token at market price at 0.0005, but now if you try to buy 10 million, perhaps the first million you're going to buy it at this price, but the 10th million you're going to probably buy it 2 or 3 times more expensive, because you will have taken all the order in the order book of exchange. So that's making it pretty hard to get a lot of token. And if you manage to have your attack being successful, you will destroy the system basically. Like people, they will know, okay, Kleros is not working anymore. so they would not want to use Kleros anymore. And if no one uses Kleros, the token is gonna not be worth anything because the token is a chance to be drawn in dispute and you get paid arbitration fees. So if there is no one using Kleros in the future, there will not be any arbitration fees, so there will not be any reason to stake the token because you will not be able to be drawn to get arbitration fees, so the value will drop to near zero. So if you 15% attack, not only that's have a high budget, so the budget is the amount of money you need to have, which is high, and it's also have a high cost, and the cost is the amount you lose when your attack is successful because of the price of the token going really down, and you have 51% of it, so you are the most impacted by this price crash.
But if the cost that you gain from attacking is greater than the cost of accumulating tokens or bribing the token holders, then it's worth executing.
Yeah, if you manage to to be able to exploit by giving a wrong ruling and get way more value than that, than the value that your token will lose by attacking the system, you could have a profitable attack. But in this case, that solves the issue of the cost. You still have the issue of the budget, which is really, really hard to get 15% of the tokens. You have some system like Augur, which try to limit the total value on the system to avoid the situation. But when I say try, they only try because they have what they call parasitic market, which will be people which are gonna rely on the Augur answer, but then use other contracts which have value on them. So that have been tried by some other project, but I don't think there is really any working method to do so, to limit the amount of value at stake compared to the value of the token. And as long as the value at stake and that it adds and the amount of dispute that an application adds are reasonable, this should not pose a lot of problem. And you can argue the same for Ethereum. You could say, oh, what if no, most of the value on the top of Ethereum is worth more than the ETH token, you can 15% attack ETH, and it can be profitable? Yes, but is it really feasible in terms of budget? I don't think so.
So, like the pool of jurors that get selected, it's going to be cheaper to bribe them than the entire.
Oh, yes, so that's why there is some appeal mechanism where you can get more and more jurors, and you can even jump from subcourt. So if it's a dispute about the cryptocurrency exchange, you may, if sufficient amount of appeal, even draw people from the general court. And at this point, even if they are not really specialized in this kind of dispute, the question will more be whether there is some attack going than the specifics of the dispute. And all of what I'm presenting, like that's usable now. You can go, you can try. This one is on escrow.kleros.io. The other was on token.kleros.io. To show you what it looked like. So then you have the Oracle, which is not really an application that we made, but some application which connected to it, which is Realitio. Let's see that. So here you can ask any kind of question. You can put a reward if you want to. That's not even mandatory, which would be given to the first party to give the right answer. But even if you don't put reward, if you have some application which rely on this question, for example, if you had a prediction market on this question, you will have some people incentivized because they have a stake in the prediction market to put the right answer. On this, if an answer is incorrect, you can put a bond which is going to be higher and higher. So perhaps at first you put 1 cent of ETH. If someone you think is wrong answer, no, I double the bond, I put 2 cents of ETH. Every time you need to double the bond. And if at some point no one changes the answer anymore, the answer is considered correct. But if you have a lot of people who disagree on this answer or try to attack the system, the amount the question is going to be large, and then it's going to be economically interesting to create a dispute. So in this case, you're going to pay some arbitration fees, but if you win your dispute, you're going to get the bond of the other party, which was giving the wrong answer. And when you create this dispute, you will have a lot of clear jurors which are going to look at this question and are going to determine whether Craig Wright provided proof that he was Satoshi or not. So here it's just yes, no, but you can have more complex questions with multiple choice. You can also have multiple choice where multiple can be correct, number, date. So everything you need for prediction markets, and also I will pose our application. Yeah, and then that's the kind of question that the juror can see. So thanks everyone, and we're gonna go to more questions.
Can you give us the mic?
Yeah.
Thank you. Fix it first. Does anybody have a question? Otherwise, I would ask something. I think in Ethereum ecosystem or in general in blockchain, there is a lot of talking about shitcoins because people imagine that every ICO is shit. So I would like to ask you, how is your project funded? And maybe, I mean, people already probably can guess, but I think this is like a good example of, and maybe you can share a little bit.
Yeah, it's quite fun that the question in the room were not why do you have a token, but more what happened if your token is not worth that much. So that's a positive sign that there is effectively a token which is needed. So the token was first sold with the interactive coin offering, which was a specific kind of ICO where you could put a maximum valuation to the token. So basically, you say if it's worth more than 1 cent, I don't want to buy, but if it's worth less, I want to buy it. So that can allow a sophisticated buyer to be protected from being diluted more than what they are comfortable. We're going to have more tokens to be sold just on simple market, simple order book, where you can buy more tokens. And contrary to a lot of projects, we did not do the big ICO, you sell everything at the beginning, but we think it's way more responsible to first sell a bit of amount, produce some result, sell a bit more, produce more result, and as long as the results are there and the token has some value, and it has some because it allows you to get thrown in dispute and get arbitration fee from those disputes. You would have more people wanting to buy token to be part of the system, and we're probably gonna sell more token in 2 months at the beginning of next year.
Where do I get the pictures of the doggies?
What?
Where do I get the pictures of the doggies?
You can go on dodgesandtrial.dog. Yeah, there is a .dog domain name.
So what is the existing token distribution like in terms of diversity?
So there is on the plan of the 100, which would be total, there is 16 which were already sold during the first sale, 16% of the total which were already sold in the first sale. There is 18% which are for team and collaborator, which are vested. So most of the token cannot be used now, but they're going to be able to be used by the team in the future. There is 50% for the first sales. So the next one will be early in January. And the few remaining 4% are in airdrops. At first, it was just everyone registering. Then there is some airdrop to people who participate in the community, and some airdrop to people who participate in the application. So, for example, if you submit token or if you submit badges in the curated registry, you can get part of the airdrop of the tokens. So you have some kind of out-of-system incentive to participate in this registry.
Maybe one more question you didn't mention, but I know that you told me, and I find it very interesting. Is Claros a company, or how is it structured?
So Claros is a cooperative. It's a SKIC. So in English, that would be cooperative company of collective interest, which means that it's not only a simple cooperative. It also includes users. So you have 3 colleges. So you have the founders, which for now get 40%, but it's lowering across time. You get the producer, which have 35%, I think. Yeah, so 35%. So that's people who are working on the Claros project, developer, operation manager, communication people, everyone who works on Claros. And then you also have the user, which for now have 25%, which are jurors, which are intermediate users. So that's parties which create applications which are connected on Claros. And then you have end user, which are people who are using application on Claros, which are part of the user college. And all of them get some voting right in the Claros cooperative. So the Claros cooperative is like classic legal world entity. It's not a blockchain DAO. You also have token voting for upgrade of the system and all of that, which for now I've still a centralized component to make the token upgrade, to make the system upgrade. But we have almost finished the governor, which is an application to execute what is voted by the token holder in a trustless manner. So that should be a true crypto system in perhaps beginning of next year, I hope.
Okay, then thank you very much for sharing this, and again for supporting us. Thank you everyone for coming. I mean, this is like just, how do you say, like a spontaneous event practically. So we're gonna repeat this, I think, next week again. So everybody's welcome to join. Sorry? Not sure yet, because we have to organize and find space. And now Jonathan also sent us another possible location. So there they charge just 500 baht for the whole day or something like that. So we have to check, actually. And there was also some ideas that maybe we could just all connect through some kind of streaming. You know, we stream, somebody who's talking is streaming, and then others just connect through Twitch, and then we don't even have to rent anything, and we can just be wherever. But it's nice to have also a room so that we can kind of talk and ask questions. So I don't know, let's see. But thank you everyone for coming. Thank you everyone for watching. And let's go to the Bitcoin event, or to eat also. Yeah. Yay.